Hello guys, and welcome to my crafting UI and criticism video, where we're going to be looking at the crafting system and discussing what could be improved based on player feedback we've seen in the forums thus far. Before we get started in the video though, remember, click the like button, click the subscribe button and that little bell, so if I make a new video you don't miss anything. So what we have to do in order to salvage or craft something currently within the game, we move down to the tech priest in the bottom side of the ship here, and we click on the little fellow, and this brings up a whole new UI interface to have a look at crafting and salvaging. Now, if we want to salvage an item, first of all, we have a couple of ways of doing this. First up, we can make sure we've selected the salvaging tab, then we click on an item. Over on the left hand side, pick the item we want to salvage and go over to the right hand side and click salvage. Nice and simple. However, the criticism here is that what if you have lots and lots of items? It does mean you have to click the left side of the screen, the right, the left, the right, the left, the right. It's quite repetitive. And while they have tried to introduce a system to make this a little bit quicker, what you can do is you'll see on the right hand side of the screen here, you can click destroy or salvage all blue, all yellow items, etc. Now that serves a purpose for clearing trash. So if I've got loads of blue items and I know I'm only going to use green items, it's fairly handy. This saves me maybe 10 clicks or so. However, when you're carrying a few items that you want to use and a few items you don't want to use, it does make it a little bit repetitive to get rid of them. If you're a little bit OCD like me, I like to put my useful items that I may want to change in between missions in the top left hand side, and then everything else is going to be rubbish. So this does mean it's a little bit awkward. I have to click back and forth, and considering how many items you get per mission, it's actually quite a lot. It's a fairly slow and sort of clunky feature. I've got a couple of thoughts as to how they could maybe refine this a little bit further. What I would like to see when you click the salvage button, I'd quite like to see the mouse change to a salvage icon, and then you could click on items individually that you want to salvage. So we could basically see the salvage icon as a form of toggle. The issue with this, and why they've probably not implemented this type of feature, is that it does mean you can quite easily misclick something when you just want to actually select something. So the UI has to be really clear that when you're going to mouse over and click something that you're going to salvage it. But that's one idea. Another possible idea is to have it similar to a dual shop feature. Some games have done this where you'll right click everything you want to salvage, it'll move it onto another window, and then from there you'll just click salvage all. Or in a shop's case you might click sell all. So that way, maybe it would make things a little bit confusing with the materials. You wouldn't know what necessarily you're getting and what your probabilities are. However, it would certainly make salvaging large quantities a little bit quicker. Food for thought, though. So now we're on to criticising crafting. And from here, to craft an item, you'll go up to your vendor, you'll click on them. You'll then click on a recipe. We'll talk about the recipes a little bit later. And then you click on all the ingredients separately. And this is a little bit of an awkward game of playing sort of snap or match. You have to look at what items are in the middle section and you have to click on them for some reason with the right click. For me, this doesn't make sense. It should be a left click to sort of activate, highlight, turn them on. And maybe if you activated ones which you didn't need to, if they implemented features where you had a choice, then you would right click in the middle option to move it back again. I don't know why they went for a right click to activate this. It feels very odd. But there you go. That's just a personal gripe that I have with the system. But I kind of feel that the middle section is one of two things. It's either something to make the UI look a bit less bland and to make each weapon look like you're doing something a little bit different. So you don't just go into a recipe, click a button and go out. It gives you something extra to do. However, because the recipes are fixed and which ingredients you select have no bearing on the weapon, at the moment, they might do in future, it does make us feel like we're just clicking for the sake of clicking, and the whole experience feels, well, it just feels a little bit pointless. I have a suspicion that once better items are implemented into the game, you'll have a choice as to which ingredients you add, and that will then make this entire feature make a lot more sense. But if that's not the case, we're just clicking stuff randomly. Really, the system doesn't feel like, well, I don't feel like it even needs this whole grand UI. You could just, when you're visiting the vendor, have a splurge up on the left hand side with your list of recipes. You could maybe have the small thing down the bottom with your list of available ingredients, and then you could just click craft and then you could just move on. However, that would be a little bit bland and make the crafting experience seem a little bit click, done, bored, move on. Something to think about. So let's move on. Now, the question that many people have asked: why do I have to wait for an item? Why, oh why do I have to wait? This has come under quite a bit of criticism. Rightly so, because waiting for things is frustrating, but here's why. In most games, when you're crafting something, you have to gather a recipe first, or go to some lengths to gather some materials. But when you level up, your old recipes will become redundant, because you're a new level. However, Inquisitor Martyr has taken a rather unique approach, and I really, really like it. Because the recipes in Inquisitor Martyr, once you've got one, it's good for you forever. If you get a critical hit or life on hit power sword, and you just hit level 3, your level 2 recipe is now level 3 as well. The stats will level up with you. This is why you have to wait, because you also have access to every single green recipe to start with. Not for the substats. You don't have the bonus of recipes within Inquisitor is you get to choose the actual stats once you get the recipe. So if you get enough recipes, then you can go, oh, hey, I'll have life on hit, health regen, and this, please. But if we didn't have to wait, what would happen is I would level up. I could go on my character screen, select a couple of items to go from level 2 to level 3. Fantastic, I'm power level 3 now. If I didn't have to wait, I could walk up to the vendor now. I could go click, and then I'm wearing full green gear. And that would be a disaster in terms of the game's progression system. It would be a disaster in terms of all blue gear and all yellow gear would be instantly redundant because there's an abundance of materials. So the reason we have to wait, in short, is because you've already got the recipes, so they have to stop you just infinitely building things somehow. Now, that is to say that there is a tech tree or a skill tree that seems to be associated with this, so you may well see reductions in times, I would suspect. However, I could be wrong with that. I could be wrong. That's just a theory. But unless they limit the materials a lot, unless they limit the recipes, so you have to get new recipes every time you level. Let's be honest, we don't want that. When you get a recipe, you want it to be a recipe for life, not just for Christmas. They have to limit it somehow, so the wait at the moment I'm happy with. If they didn't have it, the game's economy would be broken. So hopefully that's cleared a few things up with the crafting system for you. There's just a few points of criticism, and it is a little bit clunky. I'll be very curious to hear what the developers are thinking and planning on doing with this whole clicking on lots of items, ingredients separately to do stuff. It's either a placeholder or it's something that's just sort of there until they implement the full system. We'll just have to wait and see. But I do really like the idea that when you get a recipe, it's there for life. You can always make that item just when you hit that level. You might have to wait half an hour for the item, and it's going to have a random element to the stats as well. So you might want to craft a few of them. So it might take you a few days to get a particular really awesome weapon that you want. But hey, this is like an MMO in terms of gear progression. In some respects, you grind gear sets and then you progress forwards. It is very MMO-ish, so the progression in this game shouldn't be that quick. You shouldn't be able to power level, ever. You shouldn't be able to go power level 2, power level 3, power level 4 in an afternoon. It should be a slow, steady progression, and it should be fun. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry there wasn't a lot of gameplay in this, but hey, we needed to do this. Something very important. And once again, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Remember, patch coming soon too. Hype, hype.